Hi everyone, we're going to continue on now and add a bit more detail to the model. We're going to start off with the base and we're going to create the sort of little feet on the bottom of this bottle. So what we're going to do is select the bottle, and we've now got this object converted to polygons, so we can use our regular polygon tool set. What I'm going to do to begin with is I'm going to basically select the two rows of polygons here around the middle of the bottom of the bottle. So it'll be this row of polygons here, and then the inner row of polygons as well. So to do that, I'm going to right click and hold on the object, and I'm going to select face mode. And I'm just going to turn the grid off for a second, just so we can see this a little more clearly. So what I'm going to do is just click one polygon like this, and it's on the second row of polygons from the middle. So I'll click one and select it like that. I'm then going to hold down Shift and double click a polygon next to it around this ring. Okay, so it could either be this one or this one. And what that does is it will select a ring of polygons like that. I'm then going to hold down the Shift key on the keyboard, and I'm going to tap the full stop key once, and that will expand the selected polygons out one row of polygons in each direction in this case. So it's selected polygons in the middle, and it's also selected the polygons on the outer sort of ring as well, like this. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the move tool, and I'm going to move these down to the grid level. So I need to turn my grid back on like this, and I'm going to turn on the move tool. And so this selection sticks to the grid and basically stops at this level. I'm going to come up to the top of the screen, and I'm going to switch on snap to grids like this. Now you'll notice that the middle of the move tool manipulator turns into a little yellow circle. That means there's a snap function active up here somewhere. I'm going to grab the green y-axis arrow on the move tool and just drag down using the left mouse button. Now you'll notice that the move tool will jump one grid space at a time as you're moving it down. So all you'll need to do is adjust your viewport angle so that you can actually see when it reaches the floor. So you can see here I've actually pushed it right through the floor like that. So all I need to do is kind of jump up one more space from where it was, like this. Okay, so we now have something along those lines. And this is starting to become a little bit more reminiscent of our soft drink bottles, the shape that we're sort of used to seeing. Now I'm going to use the scale tool here, and with the left mouse button I'm going to click and drag on the little center cube just here in the middle of the manipulator, and I'm just going to increase the size of this a little bit. We're going to be tweaking this sort of back and forth for a little while, just until we're happy with the shape. Okay. So the next thing I want to do is I want to temporarily smooth this object. I'm going to deselect the polygons by clicking in an empty spot on the grid, and I'm going to hold down the right mouse button and select object mode and turn the tool off like this. So if I select the object, I can press number 3 on the keyboard, and what this will do is smooth the object off. Now this is just temporary. In order to unsmooth the object, I can press number 1. But note, you need to have an object selected when you press either 1, 2, or 3 for that smoothing or unsmoothing to take effect. So to give you an idea, if I smooth the object with number 3 and I deselect the object, and then I press number 1 again to unsmooth, because the object isn't selected, it won't unsmooth. Alright, so those options work on selected objects only. So you can see how it's actually smoothing the bottom of this out. So what I want to do is manipulate the position of some of the vertices down here to give us the shape that we want. And usually it's easier to do that when it's smooth like this, so we can actually see the effect that's occurring. So the first thing I'm going to do again is turn off the grid tool. The next thing I want to do is select some vertices around the object base down here. Now, quickly pressing 1, we can kind of work out that this angle here, if I look down here, I can see that the z-axis, I'm looking directly at the front of the object, just there. So the z-axis, I'm pointing sort of directly to that. What I'm going to do is select the edge mode by right-clicking and holding and selecting edge. So starting with this edge here, I'm going to select that. So we can see here that this is sort of at the front of the model. Okay. I'm then going to skip 3 edges. 1, 2, 3. And I'm then going to select the next edge. Like that. So I'm just holding down Shift and selecting it with the right mouse button. The left mouse button. Okay, so then I'd skip 3 more. So I skip 1, 2, 3. And I hold down Shift and click on this one. So basically what I'm doing is I'm skipping 4 polygons. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then selecting an edge. Okay, so the edges I'm selecting were where the original NURB surface panels were joining together. Okay, those are the panels that I'm selecting. And if you remember when we divided or set the revolve settings for the NURBS surfaces in the last video, I set the segment value to 5 for the bottle to give us the right number of feet. So what we're doing is kind of manipulating those areas. So I'm going to continue around the object doing that. So I'm going to skip 3 edges and select the 4th. Skip 3, select the 4th. And then we basically get to this point where if we skip 3, we get back to the first one. Like that. I'm then going to press 3 on the keyboard to smooth off again. And now what I'm going to do is take the move tool, like this. I'm going to turn off point snap, snap to grids, at the top of the screen. Turn this off. Okay, because otherwise this will be a little bit more difficult to do. And I'm going to use the move tool and I'm going to drag this up. And you can see we start to get sort of the beginnings of the little bumps, the little feet appearing. Now we can kind of drag this up a fair way. It doesn't, it sort of doesn't hurt to kind of drag this all the way up. And we will be adjusting these sections in here in a minute anyway. So at this point what I'm going to do is grab the scale tool over here on the left, and I'm going to grab the y-axis handle and I'm going to drag this up. Now I think possibly at the moment mine might be a little bit locked. Let's have a quick look here. Reset. Oh yes, I know what's happening. So at this point, it's a good idea to kind of have a look at what's going on. What I'm doing here is I'm trying to scale this up to stretch these vertically. And you can see here that these edges look like they're actually kind of sloping upwards. In reality, what's happening is if I unsmooth this with the number 1 key, you'll see that these edges that I have selected are actually flat. They're actually completely level. So when I'm trying to stretch them, because they're completely flat, they won't stretch because they don't actually have any height. All right, they're completely horizontal. So in order for me to kind of continue adjusting these, I'm going to have to actually adjust some vertices instead of selecting some edges. So what I'm going to do is right click and hold, select vertex mode, and I'm going to turn the scale tool off for a second. And I'm going to select each vertex on the outside edge of these little peaks that I've dragged up. So just here, hold down Shift, select this one, this one, this one, and this one, like that. Then I'm going to grab the move tool and I'm going to move those up a little bit. And I don't want to move these up too far. Okay, just a little bit so they're slightly above the other vertices that they were level with, like this. Okay, so now I can reselect those edges again. I'm doing this with the edges, this adjustment, so that it might be a little bit easier to control. It might be a little bit easier to kind of see what's going on as the shape of the object changes. So all I'm doing is holding Shift down and clicking on each of these to select them. So there should be 5 selected again. If we keep in mind that we're sort of selecting one, skipping 3, selecting 1. But they're basically the edges sort of in the middle of these little peaks. Now if I grab the scale tool, you can see here that I can scale these up and down. I can kind of stretch them now that they're not horizontal. So I'm going to press 3 on the keyboard again to smooth my object off, like this, and I can then adjust the depth of the those little feet like this. So I'm going to have them reasonably vertical like that. Okay, something along those lines. And then what I can do is, you can see here that they're kind of poking in a fair way. You can see sort of especially here. So what I might do, I could probably try and maybe scale these. Yeah, I might try and do that. What I'm going to do is scale these in the X and Z directions, which is these red and blue handles. But I want them to be uniform. I want them to scale in all directions evenly, but I don't want to make them any taller or shorter than they are. So what I need to do is kind of lock off this sort of y-axis. So to do that, what I can do is hold down the Control key. Now that's going to be Command on the Macintosh. I hold down that key, and then I grab this handle and I push up. And you can see what's happening is that the if I do this drastically like this, you can see that the objects are actually getting wider, but they're not actually getting any taller. What I can do is just kind of push this out a bit until these edges, these kind of ends of the selected edges on the outside, are sort of level roughly with the outside edge of the surface of the bottle. So I can just continue to kind of adjust this out. So before they were in here, and you know, they look a bit squashed. So all I'm doing is holding Control or Command and just pushing them out like that, just to kind of fill the kind of middle bits out here a little bit more, like that. Okay, so you can kind of keep fiddling with that shape until you're sort of happy with it. I'm kind of alright with the way it is there. So now I'm going to adjust the middle. The first thing we're going to do is double click on basically this ring here, and that'll select it. Now if I unsmooth this by pressing number 1, you can see that this is sort of one of the edges that's kind of floating around and kind of pulling up towards the middle. That's fine. I'll just press 3 again to unsmooth. What I'm going to do is shrink this down a little bit in the same way that I did just before. I'm going to hold Control and use this Y-axis handle, the one that's kind of poking down in this case. It may be poking down or up, it doesn't really matter. So hold Control, grab the handle, and just drag, probably push up to shrink this in a little bit, like that. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to double click on this inner ring just here. Now it can be a little bit tricky to get your cursor in the right spot so that it highlights red. When the edge highlights red, that's when you're actually sitting on the edge like that. And then you double click to select. Grab the Move tool and just move this up a bit like this. Now you'll notice that the middle bit here kind of pops out. Okay, that's because there's a vertex in the middle. We're going to fix that in a second. But this just basically needs to get lifted up a little bit like this. Okay, so finally grab vertex mode. So right click and hold on the object, select vertex, and select the vertex in the middle at the bottom, and you can move that up. Now usually what I'll do here is I'll kind of leave that kind of just sticking up just a little bit, okay, but it's up to you. You can kind of have it about level with that bottom piece. Okay, now I'm just going to hold down the right mouse button again and select object mode, and that'll just basically deselect the object. So I can kind of get a bit of an idea of what the bottom feet look like. And I'm pretty happy with that. I think that looks okay. What I want to do though is I want to get rid of this kind of edge that I've got here. And what's causing that is that we've got a lot of bunched up edges here, and that's from the conversion process that we did before in the previous video. So we don't really need this many edges here, so I'm going to delete probably 4 edges, probably from this one here down to this one here. So to do that, I right click on the object, holding the mouse button down, I select edge mode, and I'm going to start off here. So I've got this edge, alright. I'm going to go up to the next one and double click it, and then holding shift I'm going to double click the next one, then the next one, and the next one, like that. So basically I've got like 4 concentric edge loops selected like this, and I'll just press delete. Now deleting the edges doesn't delete the vertices, so you'll notice that we've got these little weird tweaky shapes in here. You might see a little bit of glitching. If you right click and hold on the object again and select vertex mode, you'll see that basically what's happened is it's left behind some vertices. Everywhere that those edges crossed another edge at 90 degrees, you'll notice that there's the vertices left behind. So what we do here is we just drag a box across the whole bottom of the bottle and press delete, and it'll get rid of any vertices that are kind of left over from that that edge removal. Okay, so now what we can do, I just want to kind of sharpen the bottom of this shape up a little bit. So I'm going to take this edge and I'm going to slide it down here. Now I'm not going to move it. I'm going to use a slide tool, slide edge tool. So I'll turn off my move tool for a minute. I'll right click and hold on the object and select edge mode, and double click this edge, and I'm just going to press 1 for a second, just so you can see the edge. So this is where it is. What I want it to do is sort of follow the shape of the feet on the bottle a little bit more. Okay, now you can see here if I move this down, it's going to kind of overlap and cause this kind of weird shape, and I don't want that. I want this to actually start conforming to the shape of the bottom of the bottle. So to do that, I'm going to use a tool called Slide Edge, and we're going to find that under the Edit Mesh menu at the top of the screen. Now don't forget, if this is not visible, you will need to make sure that your status, your menu set status here is set to polygons. Okay, so we go Edit Mesh, Slide Edge tool, which is just here. And it says in the middle of the screen, middle mouse drag to slide edge. So I'm going to hold down the mouse wheel like a button, and then drag left or right. So if I'm dragging right at the moment, and you can see that the edge is sliding down and shaping itself to the bottom of the bottle. If I drag left, it'll actually just push up towards the other edges. So it's just left and right with the middle mouse button held down. Now I don't want to go too far. I don't want to get too close to that edge. The closer I get to the edge, the sharper the object will become at the bottom when I smooth the object. So just for a second, what I can do is let go of that middle mouse button and press 3 on the keyboard, and it'll smooth the object again. And then I can continue using the middle mouse button and dragging left or right to adjust the sharpness. So you can see if I drag all the way to the right, it actually sharpens the bottom off a lot. And I don't want it to be completely sharp. Okay, I want it to probably go to about there, I would say, something like that. Alright. So once you're happy with the position of that, you can turn that tool off. And what I'm going to do is just make a last little adjustment to this and kind of try and unsharpen this corner a little bit. You'll notice here if I switch to edge mode, I've kind of got this sharp edge, and I want to kind of reduce that a little bit. So back in edge mode, I'm going to select the next edge up, which is this one just here. Okay, now if it's a little bit hard to select, you can rotate your viewport around a bit and try it at a different angle, like this. So I'll double click here, and this time I'm just going to use the move tool. So I'm going to move that down like that. And you can see it's starting to basically soften these edges up. So when you've got an object smooth like this, if you put edges really close together like this, you get a sharp kind of corner between them. If you have them more spaced like these are, so this edge and this edge, you get a softer curve. Alright? So if you want to adjust this kind of sharpness here, what you can do is select an edge ring, and you can use the slide edge tool. So edit mesh, slide edge tool, and you can kind of adjust the position of an edge, and then if you select another one on this side, double click it, you can adjust the position of that one. And you can see by doing that, by spacing them a little further apart on either side of this middle edge, you can actually soften the soften that corner a little bit. Okay, so it's up to you. You can just kind of position them as you see fit. When you're done, just right click and hold down on the object and select object mode. Click in an empty spot on the grid to deselect, and then turn the tools off that you've been using. So that's basically the bottom of our bottle more or less done. Now you can continue to tweak this if you like until you're happy with the shape. Okay, so I'm going to leave this video here. In the next video we will have a look at the neck of the bottle. We'll maybe have a look at adding a thread to the opening at the top here, and we'll build a cap for the bottle as well. So I'll see you in the next video.